I interviewed artists from across Canada to ask what they thought of the phrase thoughts and prayers. And then I followed up with a series of questions about their experience with prayer. Do they pray? Had they prayed in the past? Had they witnessed praying in the past? And finally, I asked them if they thought people prayed for artists. And they laughed at that one. Like, all of them laughed. Every single one. It's kind of telling, hey? So, okay, since they were artists, and artists are really good at thinking in metaphor, I asked them to describe first a thought that they had for someone that they cared about. And for a lot of them, they were separated from friends and family. They were thinking about people in their lives that they cared about, that they couldn't visit. And so I asked that they think about this thought, imagine this thought as an object that they could carry around. So some examples that folks came up with: a scrap of paper that's easily lost. Do any of you have thoughts like that for someone? That just kind of, oh, there it is. And then the bills pile up on top of it, and you lose track of that paper for a little bit, and then you're cleaning. For me, it's on top of our microwave. I'm cleaning off the top of the microwave. And oh, there it is, that thought again. Oh, that person that I was thinking about. I then asked participants to do the same thing with a prayer. So either a prayer that they had prayed or a witness prayer, because they had varying degrees of experience with prayer. So I found through their descriptions that these prayers, unlike the thoughts, they had movement and direction. So when they described the prayer as an object, it was most often a moving thing that had a direction. So they were leaving the speaker, the prayer, and they were going somewhere. So some of the ideas people came up with was like a moving ray of light, or a cloud of smoke that would slowly rise. So all of these things that people described, I drew them, both the thoughts and the prayers, as a record of our conversation, and you'll see an image up there. And it was a really significant project for myself. I'm not sure how many people actually saw it, but for me, it was really a meaningful connection that I made with these artists, and really beautiful conversations that we had on the topic of prayer. During the research into the Thoughts and Prayers project, I found that most people, when asked, have really valuable observations when it comes to prayer. There are way more pilgrims on this road than you would think. So, what is prayer? When we open our Bibles to search for a definition of prayer, I would naturally go towards the teachings of Jesus in the four Gospels. Probably many of you would as well. In Matthew 5 and 6, Jesus goes up onto a mountain to teach the crowds of people who are following him, and it's called the Sermon on the Mount. And it's where many of the most famous sayings of Jesus are from. And the author of Matthew is showing us that God is actually making a new covenant, or a new relationship, a new treaty with his people through Jesus. And it's cause for us to pay very close attention to what Jesus is saying, because he is initiating a new thing, and in particular, a new thing when it comes to prayer. So Matthew 6, 5, and 6 says, "And when you pray, you must not be like the hypocrites, for they love to stand and pray in the synagogues and at the street corners, that they may be seen by others. Truly, I say to you, they have received their reward. But when you pray, go into your room and shut the door, and pray to your Father who is in secret, and your Father who sees in secret will reward you." In these Matthew passages, you'll actually often hear Jesus referring to those who make a performance of their religious observances as hypocrites. And the root of this word in Greek has connotations to actor or performer. So somebody in the theater, someone who puts on a mask and maybe hides their true self for the benefit of an audience. But God is not an audience. How does Jesus describe God in this passage? Jesus calls God Father. And the word Father, it's formal in English, but it's really familial in the Greek translation of Aramaic. It's Abba. God is inviting us into a private and intimate space, not as others perceive us or for others to perceive us, for God knows us better than we know ourselves, and he desires to become our truest self in him. Now that Jesus has prepared us for this new relationship to God that we have in prayer, he gives us the most famous prayer in the Bible as an example of what prayer might look like in this new covenant paradigm. And you are probably very familiar with it as well. Our Father in heaven, hallowed be your name. Your kingdom come, your will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts, as we also have forgiven our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For this moment, try to see the prayer with new eyes. And we'll take a close look at what it's actually saying by line, and see how Jesus' previous teaching on prayer is enacted through the prayer that he gives us. So we'll begin with our Father in heaven, hallowed be your name. In this line, we recognize we can enter God's holy space in prayer. The word heaven, however, can be a problematic one for our 21st century imaginations. You see, our imaginations, they've been shaped by all sorts of cultural content that has made heaven a faraway place. But the authors of the Bible didn't see it that way at all. Yes, heaven can be far away, and God's holy presence, it can't occupy the same space as evil, but heaven could be close too in their imaginations. For Jesus and for his listeners, heaven was not necessarily a specific location. It was, however, the place of God's holy presence. This is not a distant Father, far away, sitting on his throne in the clouds. He is inviting us into his space through prayer. Your kingdom come, your will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. So in this line, Jesus is teaching us to give up our own agendas and allegiances to whatever kingdoms that we have allegiances to, and ask that our ways may be conformed to God's way when we pray, so that our lives might be lived in his presence. At the same time, we could also read this verse in a more universal scale, a plea that God's will and purposes might come to fruition within the whole earth, not just in our lives. Give us this day our daily bread. In this verse, we recognize that our very real physical needs, our frailty and our dependence on God for everything on a day-to-day basis. This line should really give us pause. Everything we have is a gift from God. It's not our own. And forgive us our debts, as we also have forgiven our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Along with our physical dependence on God for everything, we also recognize our very real spiritual needs, that there is sin or debt within us. We need God's healing presence to help us let go so we won't become hardened and contribute to the brokenness of this world. Now, the last bit, lead us not into temptation, I think requires a bit of an explanation because God does not tempt us. That's not what he does. But we might find ourselves in testing times, and testing actually might be a better translation than temptation in this passage. You might be in a testing time right now. And though testing can help us to grow and may be unavoidable, no one desires suffering. And it's okay to ask that you not go through times of testing. I mean, Jesus did. He asked that his Father take the cup of crucifixion from him. It's okay to ask. And this is the end of what we call the Lord's Prayer. But Jesus adds one last thought that we just can't miss. This is right after the prayer. The next verse is, "For if you forgive others their trespasses, your heavenly Father will also forgive you. But if you do not forgive others their trespasses, neither will your Father forgive your trespasses." It's a little bit of a warning at the end of this. So the idea of these verses to close Jesus' teaching on prayer, I think what he's getting at is that prayer doesn't stop with just spending time with God in his presence. In prayer, we actually become aligned to God's work in the world. He forgives, we forgive. He brings freedom, we bring freedom. He brings healing, we bring healing. But there's that warning piece too that we shouldn't ignore. If I insist that my will be done, I cut myself off from God's healing presence in my life and also the people I have in contact with.